Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm John M. Hawkins. The show is My Strategy, and we're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Well, very happy to be here with you today and glad you could join us. My Strategy radio show is live on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Today, we're going to be talking about future-proofing your career with transferable skills. We're going to talk about transferable skills and how you can gain a competitive advantage by developing these, what we call soft skills, that give you the ability to move them from one job to another. So we're going to talk about them, the importance of them, some of the 2020 trends that we're seeing, and hopefully have a good dialogue and discussion there. Well, very welcome to be here and glad you guys could join us. I'm happy to be here. Saturday for me is a great day of the week to reflect on my strategy. But keep in mind that any day is a great day to reflect on your strategy. The My Strategy show continues to grow. We're available on iHeart, iTunes, Player FM, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spreaker, and many more other digital platforms. So if you'd like to rehear this episode or go listen to past episodes, you can find them there. You can find me on most social media platforms. My Twitter handle is @HawkinsJohn, and my website is johnmhawkins.com. And just like anything in life, we need to have a strategy and a plan to help us reach our goals because the best laid plans don't always work. This week, I'm looking for stories about soft skills, transferable skills that you may have been developing. So send them to talk@johnmhawkins.com. Or if you have a tip or a trick that you would like to share with us, please feel free to do so. We're talking today about future-proofing your career with transferable skills, and this episode was inspired by our last episode, which was Will AI be taking your job in the future? And one of the takeaways from that show was that those who are developing soft skills, these transferable skills, it is giving them a competitive advantage. So in this show, I want to talk about how we can future-proof your career. We're going to talk about how these transferable skills or soft skills can become a differentiator for you. We're going to go through some of the 2020 research on soft skills and talk a little bit about what are the most important skills based on the new data that's coming in. We're going to talk about how we can go about identifying our own transferable skills and really take a look at it from our own perspective. Because while there's many, many soft skills out there, not all of us are going to excel in every area. So we need to identify which areas we excel in. We're going to talk about adding these soft skills to our profiles, online, our resumes, etc. And we're going to develop a strategy because this radio show is all about developing strategies. All right, I've got an article here by Career Guide. It says, transferable skills. What are the definitions and examples? Transferable skills, also known as portable skills, are qualities that can be transferred from one job to another. You likely already possess many transferable skills employers want, like organization or strong communication. And you can strengthen those skills and develop new ones that employers value across industries and jobs. And this is the important thing here, is that these skills transfer from one job not only to another job, but you can also go across industries. And that gives you so much more of an advantage when looking for opportunities in the marketplace, whether it's you've got your own business or you're looking at just maintaining your career. That gives you a competitive advantage so that when you go look for a new opportunity, it doesn't always have to be in the same line of work, in the same industry you're in, because many employers are looking for these transferable skills. So some of the examples, and these are just some of the common ones. We're going to go through the 2020 research and identify which ones are important this year. But they're things like communication, dependability, teamwork, organization, adaptability, leadership, and technical literacy. And I think technical literacy is one of those ones that is extremely important and many overlook. But if you think about it, in today's digital age, everything revolves around technology. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So let's really understand what these transferable skills are all about. Transferable skills are any skills you possess that are useful to employers across various jobs. We talked about them being things like adaptability, organization, teamwork, or other qualities employers seek in strong candidates. These transferable skills can be used to position your past experience when applying for a new job, especially if it's a different industry. So, for example, right, we need examples on this show. Employers often look for candidates with strong communication skills. If you've developed the ability to easily share information to and from colleagues, you can apply them in any workplace. And that really is the big differentiator here. Once you develop these soft skills, and once you become an expert in those soft skills, it's going to give you an advantage. Imagine if you were a computer programmer or if you were very technical. But on top of that, you also had tremendous communication skills. You had the ability to build teams. You had the ability to get people to work together. You had the ability to communicate ideas. You can use that communication ability across any industry. And that is the real value of why we want to start focusing on these, and they are as important as our technical skills. It says jobs in education, for example, require individuals who can communicate well with students, parents, and other faculty members. Meanwhile, people in marketing positions should be able to communicate with team members, clients, managers, and others to bring a campaign from idea to production. Transferable skill examples. It said before you apply for a new job, take time to consider which skills you currently possess that can be transferred to a new employer. Each individual list of transferable skills will vary, but some common skills that employers seek. And I think this is important because as you go through and look at your own core competencies and figure out which of these transferable skills you possess, it's also important to think about the opportunity that you're looking at. Who are you seeking to gain an advantage from, and which soft skills do they need most? So we're going to continue to go through in this show and talk about developing that list of skills. We're also going to go through and make sure that you've got a good understanding of which ones are the ones you should start focusing on. They do mention a few of them here. Now, this is not my top 5 list. We're going to talk about that in the next segment. But they have soft skills such as communication, dependability, teamwork, organization, adaptability, leadership, technology, literacy. So those are some of the skills that are highlighted in this particular article. And it says that, it's not only important for us to just know what they are, but we have to let those who we are trying to gain an advantage from, whether it's in the interview process or whether you're trying to sell a big deal or anything along those lines, you want to make sure that you've communicated them. So how do we properly put these transferable skills in Word format, on our resumes, on our social media? What are the things we need to be doing so that we are advocates and marketing this skill that we have? You're listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk about some exciting research. This shows the 2020 most important soft skills that we should be working on. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm John M. Hawkins. The show is My Strategy, and we're coming to you live on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. If you're just tuning in, glad you could join us. Today we're talking about future-proofing your career with transferable skills. Right before the break, we were talking about how AI and robots may be taking half of the jobs in the next decade. And the way to make ourselves more marketable, give us the ability to go from industry to industry, is to develop these transferable skills, which are going to be a huge differentiator for us. In this segment, I'd like to talk a little bit about some research on soft skills that talks about what are some of the in-demand skills that we should start to think about. And I've got some research here from LinkedIn, which many of you probably are aware. It is a social networking, mostly for business site. Gives you the ability to upload your current job, gives you the ability to network with others in your company, in your field, and really help you market yourself. So this article here is by Amanda Van Nuys, and it is called New LinkedIn Research, Upskill Your Employees with the Skills Companies Most Need in 2020. Amanda says, as we enter a new decade of increasing digital transformation and automation, it is now more important than ever to help your employees build the skills to grow their careers and to propel your business forward. She says, what are the most critical soft skills that an organization like yours are looking for? How can you close those skill gaps as efficiently and effectively as possible at scale? And so this report that they produce goes into, it's the Workplace Learning Report for 2020, and it goes into all of these details. And they said that they found that the number one most important information that talent developers want to help them identify skills gap is to know what is the most in-demand skills and what will they be in the future. So every year they identify the skills that companies need most so that you have some additional data points to inform your learning and development programs, help members pinpoint which skills will be most valued in the market, and guide our learning content roadmap. So to create this list, they pulled data from their network of over 600 million professionals, 20 million jobs, to reveal the 15 most in-demand soft and hard skills. We're going to just talk about the soft skills today. We'll cover the hard skills in another episode, but we're really focusing on those soft skills today. It says more specifically, they looked at skills that are in the highest demand based on the hiring rate relative to the supply of people who have those skills. These are global rankings, but they only included cities with 100,000 LinkedIn members or more. As you can see, there's quite a substantial amount of population data sample behind this research. So what are these top 5 skills? Well, they say here that these soft skills are essential interpersonal skills that make or break our ability to get things done. We think of them as foundation, and every profession should be working to build them. So I want you to think about this, ruminate on it, maybe write it down. But the top soft skills are more human-centric than they were last year. And this is a trend we're going to continue to see as things become more automated, as we have AI, artificial intelligence, robots, other types of technology advances helping us in the workplace. It's interesting to note that the top soft skills are more human-centric. Topping this year's list, now this is the top 5, are things like creativity, collaboration, persuasion, and emotional intelligence. Now, you may or may not have taken a class. Most likely you didn't take a class, or maybe they offer them now in college on these subjects. But think about that. Creativity, collaboration, persuasion, and emotional intelligence. These really are things that soft skills that you either have or you don't, and they do take development. But they're different from those hard skills where we can test. How do you test somebody's creativity? How do you look at a painting and say, oh, that person's creative and this person isn't? It's somewhat subjective. How do you test for collaboration? How do you test for persuasion? How do you test for emotional intelligence? And it says here, all skills that demonstrate how you work with others and bring new ideas to the table. More task-oriented skills like time management, which was in last year's top list, were absent in this year's. While these task-oriented skills remain critical to success at work, this year's results signal that companies are gravitating more towards talent with strong people-oriented skills. And that makes some sense. Think about it from a task-oriented perspective. We have so much technology out there to help us, calendar invites. We have the ability to really keep us on task from a time management perspective. And so maybe it makes sense that now that is dropping off and we're seeing a higher demand for these human-centric skills. So creativity. Number one, connecting the dots that are seemingly unrelated to generate original useful solutions to an incredibly valuable skill is an incredibly valuable skill in every employer, regardless of industry. Persuasion. Persuasion is convincing others to buy into your idea or different way of doing things, to build consensus, or to make a decision. Collaboration. People who work effectively and efficiently to achieve a common goal or influence others to the right end game. Adaptability. Only constant in life and business is change. Do you thrive in that environment? And a new one on the list is emotional intelligence. This is the ability to perceive, evaluate, and respond to our own emotions and the emotions of others. New to the most in-demand skills this year, emotional intelligence underscores the importance of how employees interact with each other. So very interesting here, as they go through and look at what employers are looking for. This list of soft skills is ever evolving. It is changing over time. And as a result of that, if you want to be competitive, if you want to get ahead, if you want to succeed, you have got to be aware of what these trends are, and you have to be focusing and working on these skills. Because if you're not working on these skills, and these keywords, buzzwords are things that you need to get your next opportunity, you have to show that you have them as table stakes to qualify for an opportunity. You're listening to My Strategy. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk about how we identify our important transferable skills. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I am your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. The show is called My Strategy. We're very happy to be here with you today. Glad you could join us. My Strategy episodes are live and on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We'd love to get your thoughts. If you'd like, you can send us an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com. That's talk@johnmhawkins.com. Today we're talking about future-proofing your career with transferable skills. Right before the break, we talked a little bit about some of the research into transferable skills. We talked about what the 2020 trends are, and that they're looking for human-centric skills. In this segment, I want to talk a little bit about how we can identify our transferable skills. Because it's one thing to have a big old list of transferable skills, but if we don't know which ones apply to us, or if we don't know what are transferable skills, it makes it incredibly difficult for us to start to work on them. And from a strategy perspective, we need to have clarity. We need to have our specific goals. We need to be able to measure the changes as best we can, even though soft skills are difficult to measure. That doesn't mean we, as chief strategists for our lives, can't find ways to identify them and track our progress. Got here an article, 5 steps to help identify transferable skills. It's by the Smart Business Resource Center. I like it when things are smart. Those transferable skills are those skills you have gathered through your job, volunteer work, hobbies, or other experiences that result in your gaining skills. I like that. Things that you've gathered outside of your jobs too. Volunteer work, hobbies, or other experiences. And this is so powerful. This is so important to be thinking about these transferable skills as not just being things that we're going to gain at work. We're going to gain them throughout life. And that's what's exciting about them. Transferable skills can be used to assist those who plan on changing a career or facing a layoff, new graduates, and those re-entering the job market. And I would think that everybody should be focusing on these skills, regardless of where you are in life, if you're trying to get ahead. It says here, your goals, your skills, interests, personality, and values play an important role in your career choice. So first, consider the career that interests you and will best match and utilize your transferable skills. So how do we identify these transferable skills? Well, according to the Smart Business Center, they say, number one, write down a list of jobs you've held, hobbies you've pursued, training you have received, or special interests. They provide a worksheet. They say complete the worksheet for each individual item on your list and break down all the duties and skills that you have obtained. I've got that here. You can find it online, though, at the Smart Resource Center. Review the completed worksheet and compare it to a checklist that you have put together on the right. And basically, it's a way for you to go through all of these skills, and you put a number coding by them. And then once you've coded them, you can go back and stack rank them and see which are the ones that you relate most to. It says then determine the skills needed in the jobs you may be interested in by dissecting the job ads and searching to see which skills you may have forgotten to look in your list. And I think that's important. If you're looking to change careers, move into a different industry, you need to know what they are looking for. What are those skills that they want? You may have a handful of very strong soft skills that you excel at. But not all employers think that those are going to be important for the specific role that they have. It's very important to look at what that job description is and make sure that you properly communicate those skills that you have. Lastly, group your transferable skills in related topics such as communication, research planning, human relations, organization, decision-making, clerical, etc., etc. So that's by the Smart Business Group. And they also talk about selling your skills and being able to transfer, and selling your transferable skills is the key to changing your career, which I think that makes sense. Not only should you put it on your resume, but you need to demonstrate that you have these skills. If you say that you're a fantastic communicator, show me that you're a fantastic communicator, right? It's one thing to be able to say something, but it's another thing to show it. Got another article here by AdGene's Post. Kayla Strickland wrote this. She gives us some other tips on ways we can identify our soft skills. She says, put yourself in a situation where you can learn more about the possible strengths and weaknesses and view everything as a learning experience. If your first reaction to an opportunity is to say, no, that's not in my wheelhouse, take a second to reflect. Think about your shining moments. Recall a few times when you really felt great about your work, maybe received praise from a coworker or boss. Determine which skills you use to produce such great work. All right, going back and reflecting on those successful moments in your career, in your life. What made you successful? Why did you stand out when others did not? Examine your current and past job descriptions. Scan through all the things for which you officially were responsible on paper. Take some time to write down all the skills that you have learned and that you frequently have had to exercise in order to manage these responsibilities. So it's going to take work for you to identify your soft skills. It's going to take an active investment in time to do this. But nothing in life that is worthwhile doesn't take some sort of time investment. And if you really are serious about getting ahead, about developing as a person, personal development, we have to take these steps. It's not okay just to focus on our hard skills and what employers want for us to do, But we really need to look at this other dimension, and those are the soft skills. You're listening to My Strategy. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk about ways that you can market these soft skills and adding them to your profiles. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. You're listening to My Strategy. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Well, if you're just joining us, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here, and I'm glad to be here. My Strategy episodes are live on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Today, we're talking about future-proofing your career with transferable skills. We're talking about transferable skills and the way you can develop a strategy to boost you in your career, your business, etc. We're really talking about these soft skills that you can take with you throughout your work life. We've been talking about a lot of things today. We talked about the 2020 skill trends. What were the top 5 skills that employers are looking for? Talked about some examples of transferable skills. In this segment, we want to talk a little bit about adding soft skills to your profile. It's one thing to say that we have soft skills, and yeah, I've got soft skills, but how do we demonstrate that? And also, how do we go about marketing them? Because if we're not promoting ourselves, nobody else is really going to do that for us. So we need to be thinking about how to do it. I've got an article here written by the Resume Coach, and it says transferable skills, how to add them to your resume. Adding transferable skills to your resume and showcasing them to potential employers can significantly improve your chance of reaching the first interview stage. It's also very effective if you want to produce a resume to help you change careers. If you want to move into a new profession, you may feel that you lack some of the required skills. However, there are transferable skills that are relevant to most positions. What are transferable skills? Well, we've been talking about them for most of the show, so hopefully you've got a good idea of what they are all about. But they're going to give us an example, because I always think it's important for us to go through this. The repetition is going to ingrain it into our memories. Transferable skill examples include communication, speaking, listening, and writing. Problem solving, strategic planning, project management, and decision making. Organizational skills, reliability, time management, and interpersonal skills. Such as empathy, customer service, and leadership. And we talked about the top 5 skills, but I really like this list here. I mean, I really like this list. Communication skills, speaking, listening, and writing. Problem solving, strategic planning, project management, decision making, organization, reliability, time management, and interpersonal skills like empathy, customer service, and leadership. Now, I can see anyone who really has these transferable skills is going to have a better chance of success in succeeding in their career, in their job, than somebody who doesn't. And we've got these hard skills. We've got these things we can do. But if you have the ability to communicate what it is you're doing, to be able to identify when there's conflict and provide resolution, you have the ability to be empathetic for your customers, that is so much more powerful than just being technically good at something. And so, that's why I'm pretty passionate about these soft skills and these transferable skills, and I think you should be too. But we're talking in this segment about how do we include these on our resume. So transferable skills on your resume help to sell you to prospective employers, but this doesn't mean you should include all of them on every resume you send. It's important to identify the transferable skills which the employer is looking for, and then clearly demonstrate them on your resume. And I think, this is important. We just don't want to do buzzword bingo on our resume and say, I'm a great communicator and I'm so empathetic. If you can't prove it and you put it on your resume, that's going to ruin your chances as well if you get past the first stage. So we want to be honest with ourselves. We also want to be honest with our employers. We want to be honest with those jobs we're looking for. And if we see a specific soft skill that we need to develop on, you can always put it down and say, I'm working towards it. It's okay to say, I'm trying to do better at this, right? My strategy radio show is all about trying to get better. Every day we learn a little bit more. Every day we add more knowledge to our database here. But we're never going to become experts in this space. We're never going to have all the answers because there's so much to learn out there. So it's okay to learn and to want to learn and to show that you have an aptitude for it. This is focusing on the required transferable skills allows a candidate to produce resumes which are ideal for making a career change. However, even if you're applying for a similar position, focusing on your strengths can also help your resume stand out. So they say, how do you write these transferable skills on your resume? You can include transferable skills in a skills section of your resume. That's quite obvious, right? Have a skills section. And in there, add those transferable skills. Things like I'm a team player, I have strong leadership skills, etc. But they say it's best to provide examples of when you've actually demonstrated your transferable skills. An effective formula to demonstrate transferable skills on a resume is by explaining how your actions solved a problem and what the results were. Many candidates use the PAR methodology, which is P stands for problem, A stands for action, R stands for result. So what was the problem? What was the action that you took? And what was the outcome or the result? You can also use this method in other sections of your resume to give further examples. You can use the PAR method in your work experience section or your key accomplishments section. Proving examples in this way is much more convincing for employers. And I think that's where we really need to start to think about this beyond just writing down these transferable skills that we have. But how did I solve a business problem using these transferable skills? And because I had these skills, I had a more positive outcome, a more positive result as a result of having these qualities than not having them. And that's what's going to take some practice for you to do. Because number one, you've got to have these soft skills developed. You have to show that you can use them in a business situation. And then we have to properly communicate them to those who are looking for them, right? I mean, supply and demand. You're listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk about developing your strategy. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Show is My Strategy. We're live on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Today we're talking about future-proofing your career with transferable skills. Hopefully you're gaining lots and lots of knowledge about these transferable skills. And right before the break, we were talking about how to add these transferable skills to your profiles. By adding them to the profiles, it gives you a better opportunity to communicate to prospective employers, business partners, etc. How you have all these great soft skills and the value that those skills provide. In this segment, I want to talk a little bit about developing your strategy. Our show is all about developing strategy. And I have a 5-step process that I use. It's number 1, awareness. Number 2, assess and analyze. 3, strategize and plan. 4, implement. 5, support and evaluate. So from an awareness perspective, we need to know what our vision, our goals, what is it that we want to achieve. So with regard to soft skills and development, what are we trying to achieve by developing these soft skills? We have to look at our current situation. Where are we in life? What is the value these soft skills, these transferable skills are going to provide us? It may be that we decide we don't need to develop any soft skills. We are perfect as we are. We have no desire to be pushed forward, to go forward, and as a result, there is nothing to do. So we are aware, we've decided that this isn't something that's important to us. We just let it go. But you may take a look at it and say, well, wait a minute, I cannot achieve my vision. I cannot accomplish my goals unless I do become stronger in specific areas. Then we need to look at it from an assessment and analysis perspective. We need to analyze the situation. If we have identified we need transferable skills, we need to dive deeper. Which transferable skills are we deficit in? Which are the ones that we should be focusing on? It might be that those 5 skills that we mentioned in LinkedIn are the ones we need. Great. Let's go through and analyze where we are with respect to those. Now, it's very difficult to measure these soft skills, but if you're just learning about them today, number one, it's understanding what they're about. What are the dimensions of these skills? Do you contain these skills? Are you working toward these skills? If you say you're great at communication, show me. Give me something that you've written recently. Do a recording of yourself and communicate a storyline, a plot, an idea. You might say that you're great at communication, but that's your own perception. Is it the reality? So we need to look at it as objectively as we can and say, where are we? Then we need to look at this from a strategy and plan perspective. We know that while we've made the assessment and we find out that, let's say, for example, I'm deficient in communication and that's something I need to be focusing on, well, if I continue in my daily life and don't make any changes, how is that going to affect my ability to be a better communicator? It's not, because I need to practice at communication. So I need to strategize. What are the actions I can take on a daily basis to make me a better communicator? What are the dimensions of communication? Is it written communication, oral, verbal or nonverbal? What do I need to be thinking about to be a better communicator? And so then I need to say, well, how am I going to work on these transferable skills? How am I going to work on these soft skills? And if I'm going to be a better communicator, I need to dedicate time throughout the week to work on it. Do I need to write an article? Should I do, more video blogs? How do I go about working on communication? Maybe I'm not a good active listener and I'm great at talking, but I don't listen to anybody. So those are areas we can work on. We then need to implement our plan because it's important for us to not only talk about the strategy, but we need to implement it. We need to then test it, and then finally feedback from others. If we're not making progress, if we're not affecting change, if we do not see any forward progress in those areas, why are we not seeing forward progress? Is it that this is not a core competency of us? It's not in our wheelhouse? Or is this something that we need an expert to help us with? Those are all real possibilities. If you're not the best resume writer and you're the most brilliant communicator and you are more empathetic than anybody else on the planet, you're applying for positions and you're not getting them, well, why? It might be that you've not been able to effectively communicate those, marketed those on your profiles. Find somebody who can help you do that. Why wait? Why be the best person at what you are and then not be able to excel just because people don't know that you have that skill? And that, to me, it gets pretty frustrating because you see talented people every day who are passed up for opportunities, who aren't given the chances, who are brilliant at what they do. And the reason they aren't getting those opportunities is because people don't know about it. And other people are promoting and shouting and saying that they have these skills, and they don't really have these skills. So I want you to start thinking about this strategy. Start really thinking about these soft skills from the perspective of, it's a make or break thing. If you do not come through, identify these skills, promote them, actively work and develop them, and nobody knows about it, you can't blame anybody but yourself when you don't get ahead because you have these skills. And that's what we're trying to do here. We are trying to develop ourselves personally But we have to be realistic. We have to look at this from an objective perspective, which means outside of ourselves, our feelings. I could be sitting there applying for job after job after job, and I know that my core competency is I'm, the most effective communicator, or I'm somebody who really knows how to be empathetic. And yet I keep getting, denied, even though I know that that is the skill set they're looking for. And so we have to look at it from somebody else's perspective. How are we being portrayed by the person who is looking through these profiles? What are we doing to demonstrate that we are proficient in these transferable skills, in these soft skills? In our last show, we talked about AI and how the prediction is that robots going to take 50% of the jobs. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I can tell you that if 50% of the jobs are going away, it means we need to have a strategy in place to be able to keep gainfully employed, to grow our career. And so let's put a lot of emphasis on these soft skills. Let's put a lot of emphasis on being able to identify them and be able to come up with a plan and a strategy to show how we can use them to benefit businesses and organizations. You're listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk about putting your plan in place. We'll be right back. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. We're very happy to be here with you today. My strategy episodes are on Saturdays. They're live at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Love to get your thoughts. If you'd like to send us your feedback, you can send an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com. That's talk@johnmhawkins.com. And if you miss this broadcast or you'd like to listen to any of our past recordings, you can go to iHeartRadio and Apple iTunes. If you'd like to have something covered on the show, send an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com or just give me a call at 1-844-MY-STRATEGY. That's 1-844-MY-STRATEGY. Phone number is the same as the radio show. Today we've been talking about future-proofing your career with transferable skills. This episode I've been talking about the transferable skills and the way you can future-proof your career. We're talking about these transferable skills, which are also known as soft skills that you take with you in your career. We've been talking about how we can develop a strategy. We talked today about AI last week. We talked about how that there's predictions or projections that robots may replace half of the jobs in the next decade. Well, if this is the case, what are we going to do about it? The answer was transferable skills. Transferable skills are a differentiator for you. They can help put you in a position whereby your talents, your skills are more in demand than others. Transferable skills also give us the ability to go from one industry to another without having to rely on those hard skills. So that's the reason we're talking about this. It's going to help us future-proof our career. When the robots take over our jobs, we are going to be able to move on into new industries, new opportunities, and be able to thrive. We then talked a little bit about the LinkedIn research. We talked about the 2020 skills, the most important skills, and they found that most of those are human-centric, focusing on those human skills that we need to be working on. We're going to talk a little bit about how we go about identifying those transferable skills with a SWOT analysis. What are our shining moments? What are our current and past job descriptions? But once we've identified those important transferable skills, we must market ourselves. We must add them to our profiles. We must get them on our resumes. We must show that we have used these skills in past problem statements, past challenges to accomplish some objective. And finally, we talked about developing our strategy and developing a skills worksheet, talking about ways that we can identify all those skills. But keep in mind that even though we've got this great strategy in place, breaking habits and being aware of these patterns is very hard to do. So we want to look to our friends, look to our coworkers, look to others who can help us through this. And by going through this process and developing your strategy, it's going to help you with conscious prioritization. You also need to be committed to these new goals, to these new activities, to be able to think about things in a different light, because it's one thing to just consciously prioritize and commit, but we need to embody this. We need to really start to focus on it. And finally, clarity can be obtained by having somebody help coach you through this. That's all the time we have for this week. I wish you all the best of luck in the next week and your transferable skills. You've been listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. We'll see you next time.